first of all, let's go way back. How did you even get into human design?
Yeah, about 26, 27, I met a shaman who did many different modalities on me, and one of them was human design. People were telling me to surrender. People were telling me to let go. People were telling me to go with the flow. And I was just like, how does that look for me though? Like, how do I apply this to my life? And the fact that I felt like I didn't know how to do it made me feel like I was sucking at spirituality. And he started saying things to me that were like so specific. And I was like, how have I never heard this before? You know?
Like what?
So he would say to me, you're a projector, so you are more in your genius when you work maybe 2-3 hours a day of output, and the rest of your time is like observing and coming to conclusions and coming up with tweaks and improvements and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, I would love if this was real, but it's almost like sounds too good to be true. And don't forget, at the time, I had no evidence that I could do it that way, right? And I was brought up to just like push and push and push. I was like waking up at 6 a.m. every day. I had a food business. I was like trying to make stuff happen. Nothing was happening. I was like emailing all these stores to get in. And he was like, you're going to be better off when people invite you and when people recognize you before you even like approach them. You have to make sure that they see you for your skills and recognize you as a person that can come up with like tweaks and improvements. And that's what your like value is here. And I was just like, I mean, my whole world was just like, okay, because this is what alignment looks like for me. And I was like, this is the missing piece, because everybody gets told that we're different, but no one tells you this is how you're different, right? So this guru is saying you need this morning routine or this, or whatever, but it doesn't work for everybody. And human design to me was like this thing where sometimes you need this outside thing that's going to tell you this is what your essence is. And then this like full permission to go and be that.
So let's take a step back, because for people that are learning for the first time what human design is and how they figure it out, before we really get into the details here, what is a human design and how do people figure out what their design is?
So it's similar to astrology in the sense that you take your exact birth details, including your exact birth time, you put it into a piece of software and it will calculate your chart. The difference between astrology and human design is that human design maps the positioning of the planets against 3 other modalities. So the chakras, the Kabbalah, and the Chinese I Ching. And the Chinese I Ching, basically thousands of years ago, you heard of a guy called Confucius?
Sure.
He mapped 64 different types of energy that are available to us in this world. And each one corresponds with a different human trait. And so when you kind of juxtapose astrology with the Chinese I Ching, you get almost like a genetic expression of you. So what things are active in your chart. The idea is that when you come here with a specific mission. Your soul has a specific reason that it came here to accomplish certain things. And you chose specific gifts and traits and skills and ways of being that you needed in order to be able to accomplish that mission. And you also chose certain things that you didn't need to be, right? And then you come into this world and the world tells you need to be more like this to be loved. You need to be more like this to be validated, to belong, to be successful, whatever. So you start to unbecome yourself. When you're a kid, you kind of already know how to be your best and highest self. As time goes on, you get conditioned. And so the whole goal with human design is actually to decondition from all the ways you've been taught to be in order to get back to who you already knew that you were. And when you're living as your highest self, everything starts to sort of align much more easily, right? You don't bump up as many roadblocks as much as you do when you're not being yourself. So that's the thing that we try to do for people.
We were talking a little bit before we started, and we were talking about like woo-woo stuff. Mm-hmm. For the skeptics out there that are listening and saying, okay, yeah, cosmic design and all this stuff. I don't know if I believe any of this. Maybe I'm gonna, figure something out. Like,
by the way, you used to be one of the skeptics, and you've turned a corner.
I'm a very enlightened person these days.
No. I just want to say that you call it woo-woo, but you used to be so black and white, and recently you've had a little bit of a epiphany.
because here's the thing. People send a Google thing. It's like, oh, here's I'm Aries for the month, and it's like almost like confirmation bias. It sends all these great things. Like they want to, of course, you're going to believe all the great things that your sign is saying about you. So I think for this to kind of negate some of those skeptics or to blunt some of the skepticism around this topic, how do you talk to those people?
Yeah, actually, those are my favorite kind of people to talk to, because I really believe that there isn't a single person on this planet who doesn't want to know a little bit more about how they can function better, whether it's they want to parent their kids a bit more according to their kids are, or they want to eat for their freaking digestion rather than try the new diet or whatever it is, right? There's always
who doesn't like hearing more about themselves?
Exactly.
Everyone who's listening, don't lie. You love to hear more about yourself. Go on.
So there's no one there's no one you can't kind of rope around. My favorite is when I used to do readings, and when people would like, oh, can you please do a reading for my boyfriend or my husband or whatever? And the husband would be like, super sciencey. I used to be the same way, not believe in any of this stuff. And then you kind of like ring them around. That's like the most fun. But it's all about the way you speak to people. And I really think if you say to someone, listen, you're built to be inconsistent, and so trying to do the same thing every morning isn't going to work for you. There is a resonance inside some people where they secretly wish that someone could tell them that. And you can kind of feel that when you're reflecting someone back to them, but they just didn't necessarily have the bravery to go against the grain, because we're being told to be so many things all the time that we think there's something wrong with us if we try to be ourselves in certain ways.
So let's do this. How many different human designs are there?
Okay, so there's many different categories, right? So you have your top line thing is your energy type, and that's what you're a reflector, right? So that's called your energy type. And your energy type is how you use your energy, how your energy patterns work, and also how you exchange, like give and receive with the world. So like how you make things happen, how people come to you, that kind of thing. So that's kind of like saying your sun sign in astrology, and there's 5 of those.
And what are those?
So you have projectors, reflectors, manifestors, generators, and manifesting generators.
And what's the most common?
Generators are the most common at the moment.
At the moment?
At the moment. They've changed over history. There's been different times, because certain times in periods of like collective evolution, you need predominant amounts of energy of these kind of people, more of those. Projectors only came into existence in 1781. We didn't need them before that.
No.
Michael, by the way, just so we can give context, is a projector.
He's a projector, yes.
So is Jenna.
Yes.
Don't mean to brag, but I'm a reflector.
And for people that want to just quickly figure out as they're listening, if they want to pause and go and be like, what am I? It's quick. I remember it's quick to do, right?
Yeah, you just go to My Human Design and you put in your birth details, and it will.
But you have to know your birth time.
Exactly.
Why is that so important?
Because there's a lot of other variables that can change depending on like from 1 minute to the next. So you could be the same for 2 hours, but if it changes in that next minute.
So you got to get like your birth certificate or go to your parents.
If you live in America, it's on your birth certificate. Yeah.
Okay, so can you break down all 5, the differences between each one? So let's say you guys have you figured it out what you are. Jenna's going to break it down for you.
Okay, so the first one, let's start with generators. So generators are just your classic kind of like sparkly doers, okay? So you think of people like Oprah, like Beyonce, like Meghan Markle. The kind of people that when they're doing stuff they love, it just is so magnetic and other people want to just consume or do whatever it is they're doing type of thing. But the thing about those people and their energy, it's a very consistent, it's almost like romancing one skill every day for the rest of their lives where they achieve this like mastery of it, right? So it's the classic, like I just get up and I do it every day and 9 to 5 and I have this consistent energy. And when I'm passionate about something, it gives me more energy to keep doing it. Okay. So the world is very much built for generators in the sense that it's supportive of their energy pattern. However, obviously they get conditioned because the world tells you it can't be as easy as just doing something you love, which for them is crucial, right? Because when they're doing something they love, what they're actually sharing is like their joy juice. It's like so infectious. They could be selling paper clips and people would buy them if they're like so lit up by it. So that's generators. Then you have manifesting generators, and manifesting generators are similar, but they're much more multi-directional. So manifesting generators are your classic kind of like Jessica Alba, who has her eco company and she's an actress, or Tony Robbins is like doing 25 things at the same time. So they're people who achieve mastery much quicker than generators, but then they also get bored of things much more quickly, and they can hold many hats at many different times. If you're 15 years old and you say, I want to do these 10 things, your parents are going to say, you can't do 10 things. Just pick one and just be an accountant and be an accountant for the rest of your life type of thing. Whereas manifesting generators, they want to try this, then close the business down after 6 months and then, move on to the next thing. So they're sort of like the classic, start a book, never finish it, all over the place, but in a good way if they can harness it and somehow fuse lots of different life paths together and somehow make sense of them in ways that it wouldn't make sense to people if you described it before you lived it. But when you live it, people are like, cool, it's great. So that's manifesting generators. And then you have manifestors. Manifestors are people who I mean, every king and queen in history and every conqueror in history has been a manifester. Like historically, it's crazy because they're people who are really here to start movements. So what they do is they feel this like urge to go do something, and then they just have to go do it and not care about who's following, who's coming. Can I micromanage you to join me on the journey? Can you be part of the team? It's just like, I'm going, I'm doing this. And when they're so unapologetic about what they're wanting to do, that's when people are going to follow them. So I was watching an interview with Adele recently, and she's a manifester. And she was saying like, oh, I put out an album and I go all in like for a year and then I disappear for 2-3 years. And that's classic manifester. They're either at like 200% or they're at 20%. So you probably can think of someone that you know that works like that. But then that's also not supportive of them in the world, because the world is like, you need to be consistent. You need to keep on showing up in the same way. You think about people who have started movements and really have that passion for it, like Gloria Steinem is a manifester, J.K. Rowling is a manifester. They're just people who are like creating a world within this world. And when they're so okay with it and not trying to figure out who's coming with them, people just like want in, right? And then they just kind of leave it. It's like, it's very low touch for them, for want of a better word. Then you have projectors. And projectors are
Michael's like pulls his chair up. He gets his ear horn out.
I was listening to the other examples because as you were talking, I was just trying to think of
people you know.
Yeah, people I know or people I thought. But anyways.
Okay, so Michael. So everyone knows, like I said, and Jenna are projectors.
Mm-hmm.
So let's hear all about my husband, so I can learn more about you and how to deal with you.
Let's do it.
Yeah, that might be nice for you to learn a couple of things.
I mean, if we had, we could go very deep on this, but basically, as a projector, so reason I said to you they're the most kind of recent types, they've only existed for 200 years, because before this, everybody was kind of busy doing, and you've heard about the previous 3 types that are all like out in the world, like rolling around in the sand, doing their thing, being passionate, starting urges, whatever. And then the same year that Uranus was discovered, the planet Uranus is the planet of sort of like being out of the box and trying new things and originality, right? So when the planet Uranus was discovered, that was kind of like we were gifted with that energy as human beings as well. That was like the potential that was available to us. And so projectors came along as kind of, I like to say they're like the birds up in the branches. So they're not the lions and the tigers running from place to place. They're saying, hey, you can get from this place to this place a bit better by going this way. Or like, here's another hack. Here's another hack for you to be able to do this. Here's an improvement. Here's something I can see. Now, projectors, where they can go wrong is if they try to be a lion or a tiger and try to compete at that level of like, watch how much I can like push and force and hustle and make things happen, because you're a bird. You can't be a tiger. It's like, you know what I mean? So everyone has to kind of be their correct animal, and then everyone functions better together. So projectors are, and they all...
He literally has a vulture tattoo on him.
Wow.
Well,
no, that's crazy, Michael. That's crazy.
Well, it's funny. People said like, why? I'll explain. I've never actually talked about it, but why I think that vultures are some of the smarter animals, because they sit and they wait for other people to do all the stuff, and then they come down.
That is wild.
And they don't put themselves at risk, and they can see everything else, and they wait, and they just are patient, and they don't have to take the same path.
That's actually wild.
Like they can wait for a lion or a tiger to kill someone and take all the risk, and then.
Wow. Okay, go on.
So the strategy for a projector is to wait for the invitation. Literally what you're saying is waiting.
Yeah, I mean, when you said that,
you're invited.
He literally got a vulture tattooed on him because of that years ago.
Well, no,
That's
but
bonkers.
also like I had a problem with patience when I was younger. So like, there's a lot. I mean, listen, my
Wow.
tattoos
Because
over
you
time.
weren't in tune with yourself.
My tattoos over time I guess they change as you grow, and also I just like the artwork. But
That's
yeah, I think
crazy.
like that was like everyone gets an eagle, right? Eagle's a very aggressive bird, right? It's got to
Mhm.
like go. Vulture doesn't
Mhm.
have to do that.
Wow. There you go.
Go on.
That's interesting. So that's the thing about projectors, and I was touching on this a little bit before, is like if we try to do 9 to 5 doing, which is what we're conditioned to do in order to feel like we will be successful, it actually blocks you from just the sitting, the observing, the seeing, the spotting, improvements and tweaks and all that kind of thing. So projectors are often very obsessed with what could be better, why people aren't getting it, why people are
I was looking at Taylor because I was literally just with the entire company complaining about this. I was like the small details, the little things. When you know what I'm saying? Like when you go to a hotel or a restaurant, it's like the little things that make it stand out the most.
Yeah.
Right? Like the little tiny things that change. It's like those things. Yeah.
And You married a girl that loves the detail. Okay.
I
Go
love
on.
it.
I have
It's
to hear
so
more
good.
about this.
Taylor, did I not just do that?
It's so funny. That's
Yeah.
so funny. So I mean, I can
Here I am confirmation biasing myself.
I can identify. Anyway, so yeah, that's the really interesting thing about everybody working in a different way, and actually you find more success when you try doing it the way that is your real, like in line with your natural energy. Can we talk about reflective?
Well, I'll tell you this, because I do think I'm not even talking about myself, but one thing that resonates so much with me is what you said about people trying to work the same way that other people do and operate in the ways that we've been told. And I was probably similar to you, that same person. Like, I got to get up at 5:30 and I got to get going and do all the journaling and do all the hustling and show up at this time. And it did not work for me at all. Right. And there was even if you go back earlier in this podcast, there's a period of time when I was like doing all that stuff and it just wasn't working for me.
Wow.
Hold on. I need some tips about how to be in a relationship with a projector. Like, what are you guys' sort of like love language before we move to reflector?
Recognition.
Recognition. Explain what you mean.
Recognizing when there is a like a seeing or a wisdom going on, because that's the sort of like the USP of a projector, is like that's what makes them them. And so when you recognize a projector for like when they spot things, when they see things, when they're wise, because they also need the it means a lot to them to get the, to be seen by other people, because they're constantly seeing into the other. Our aura is very penetrating, so it works very well one-on-one. The name projector comes from the fact that when you have a light that's shining on you, you feel so seen. But the projector itself is just looking behind you and seeing the shadows. Right? So they can often get very bitter and very frustrated with the way the world works because they're spotting all the areas for improvement. So in a relationship, when you're in a relationship with a light, imagine, you need to have that light reflected back to you.
But in reverse, it can get you in trouble because you're seeing a lot of the areas of improvement.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I literally told Taylor the other day, he's like, "Gosh."
Taylor,
he goes, Michael sure likes to criticize. And I said, that's how he is.
It's not necessarily criticizing.
I could literally show you a Van Gogh and you would say, what's that pepper?
Yeah.
Is that a piece of pepper right there?
Okay, now
you do.
No, I'm confused now, because if I have to go by my human design, Lauren, and I have to operate within this design. I support your human design. So I can be better at also acknowledging where people are doing great jobs or like, I know that, Taylor.
Taylor's having a seizure.
But I think my default mode is I go right to, like there's an area for improvement, or like that can be better, or like that can be fixed, or like why is that not this way instead if it can't.
That's fun to have sex with. Hey,
I'm not doing
You're
it.
in doggy. This ass could be little tighter.
I'm like, Lauren, you can arch the back a little better. No, I'm just kidding. Let's not go on a tangent. But so for projectors, and again, this is kind of selfish, in order to not get into a vulnerable position where you're making people feel bad, how do you combat that?
You do it with levity. So it's interesting because it's not that you can't take away the things that you notice, right? But it's like when you see them with like frustration or like, why aren't people getting it? Rather than seeing it as like, oh, this is why I exist, is like to bring the specialness, and there wouldn't be a value for me if all of this was already working. Do you know what I mean? So it's just like a slight reframe on like, this is actually me seeing my own value when I spot these things, rather than like, why aren't they getting it?
Okay, that's actually a very helpful framework. I mean, there's little things. I walked in this office the other day and one of the screens didn't have the right thing, and that's like the first, like you'll see all the amazing things, and I'm like, why the hell is that screen not right? And like, probably drives people nuts.
Yeah, it does.
How do you think I feel?
Or Taylor, what did I do? There was like a cord on this TV the other day. I'm like, all the things going on in the company. I'm like, what the fuck's that cord doing?
I remember I showed him, this is a true story. I showed him my book when it was done. It's like all done. Like, it's so gnarly to write a book. Like, I'm so excited to show you. And you go, where's the page numbers? The page numbers were there, by the way. They were just not in a place that you were used to seeing them. And I looked at you and I go, are you fucking kidding me?
I don't mean it.
Where's the page numbers? Not like, the book feels great, or like the quality, or like, wow, look who's in it. Like, you literally were like, where's the page numbers?
Here's the thing. I'm not some freak that's like trying to put people down. I think, and I really do mean this, like I see the potential in things, and I think like, listen, my wife's incredible. Taylor, our producer's like everybody I work with is incredible. But I know if I notice an area of improvement, I want to share that area and be like, we could be better.
Oh, you share it.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so it sounds like projectors are good in relationships with reflectors.
Well, in theory, it would be helpful to most people to be close to a reflector, because that is where you can really fully see yourself. So everybody needs to know a reflector. What they say is that reflectors belong at the center of the tribe so that everybody can get like a regular check-in of how they're doing.
Don't tell her
where
that.
they're standing.
Don't tell her that.
You do go for me for a regular check-in. Okay, so what is reflectors like personality types?
Yes. Okay, so it's interesting because personality, you have your own separate thing called your personality. So that's another situation. But in terms of their energy, a reflector, so when you look at a chart, normally there's like so much color, okay? In this chart, you'll see like it looks kind of like a human being. It looks a little bit like 7 chakras, except for there's 9, and some of them are colored in. What makes reflectors is that all those centers, all the chakras are white, which means that they are open and receptive in ways that other people are unable to be, because they're like chameleons. They can literally absorb the energy of the room wherever they are in such an open way, because they're not mired with their own energy. So you're the clearest, right? That's why they say reflector. So the thing about reflectors is when you're in a ego dance with people, which we all are, we all present as our personas, right? It takes 2 people to uphold the dance. With a reflector who's so in the seat of their own soul, you are able to witness your own persona in a way that you can't with other people, because they are so clear, let's say. So think about the conditioning of spirituality is like you have to know who you are. You have to like come up with like this idea of thinking about, who are you and this whole thing. With reflectors, they can be everything and nothing. So you experience the spectrum of humanity over the course of a month in the way that no one else does. You can feel every mood, every way, every vibe, all those different kinds of things, because you're so open and receptive. So you're picking up on whatever he's feeling in some way and you're amplifying it. So you're feeling like an exaggerated version of him, right?
Oh,
so
you're literally describing everything I try to explain to him. I can feel like everything. Go on.
Well, Lauren is the one person in my life that when whatever I'm going through, I go to her first to figure out like either how to calm down or how to feel better or how to like, but it's true, honestly. And I probably a major reason why I was attracted to her so young, right? Because I've attracted to her since I was 12. But yeah, like I go to her whenever I'm spiraling, I go to her and be like, all right, like, now calm down, dude.
Wow. That's so cool.
Go ahead.
So it's a different kind of wisdom, because where a projector can tell you what to do better, a reflector will show you with their energy, because you will literally see yourself when you look at a reflector. So the thing about reflectors is really interesting. If anyone knows a reflector, I would encourage you to think about like, what are the 3 different qualities that you would associate with that reflector? Because if you see negative in that reflector, it is literally a mirror of you. If you see positive in a reflector, it means you're doing good at life, right? Especially a reflector that's what we call living their design, i.e. living in alignment, not doing this ego dance, not presenting as a persona, but sitting back in the seat of their own soul. You can see everything. So people who are reflectors, the most important thing for them, because they are so susceptible to their environments, is to really keep coming back to firstly, to protect themselves from many environments that feel out of alignment and constantly sort of like clean their energy, but also to keep coming back to a place where they really feel like themselves. So it kind of like resets you, because imagine how we all feel thrown off in different environments. For a reflector, that's like 100 times more, because there's no consistent thing in you to sort of like ground back to, if that makes sense. So with you, if someone is feeling a 2 out of 10 angry, you can probably tell that they're feeling angry way more than they are, because you're feeling it in your own body in like an 8 out of 10 way. And the 2 out of 10 would have 0 visibility on it, right? Like there's just no way of being able to tell, especially if they have so much other stuff going on. But because you're clear, you can feel it. Now, obviously that's very depletive if you're constantly magnifying what everybody else is feeling the whole time. So it's really important to, you can sense something, an environment or a place that's aligned, and just to be completely unapologetic about removing yourself from stuff that doesn't feel like it makes you feel good. That's the number one thing for reflectors, is curate your environment.
It's so funny that you say that, because I got interviewed on why we moved out of LA and I almost couldn't explain it. And it's exactly what you're saying. I didn't feel aligned. It's like just didn't feel aligned anymore. And now that I'm in Austin, it feels so aligned with And maybe it won't feel aligned in a year. I told him this the other day, but right now it feels so aligned, and I feel so much more fulfilled with just by changing environments.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll be honest too. Like, I'm one of those people that can be in any environment and like really not be affected. I'm like, okay, like, like maybe everybody's in a negative space. Like, all right, well, whatever. Like everyone's in a happy space. I'm like, okay, so whatever. Lauren gets like, if we're in a space and there's a bunch of negative, like it doesn't just drain her, like be like, oh, I don't like this. It like drains her physically. Like she has to leave. And
or when you turn the lights on too loud, or when you're listening to
lights are loud. You mean
too
right?
Loud. No, I'm like so sensitive to like everything. Yeah, you turn the lights up too much, or
well, she's been that way since we were kids.
Or I'm just so sensory overload. I'm so sensitive to it. And I think though with a reflector where you can go wrong is sometimes you try to control the environment because you can feel everyone's energy. And it's like, it feels like almost like a responsibility.
Yeah,
which
for
is
sure.
draining.
For sure. Instead of just removing yourself.
Yes.
Right.
But I've learned now, like with certain people in my life that I have to set time limits. Like like say there's someone that I know like is going to drain me. I know I can only be around them for an hour.
Right.
And before knowing that, I would try to do like 3 hours, and it would be like such a clusterfuck.
Or she would try to change their mood or their, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And because they're sometimes probably unaware of their mood too. So then it's annoying because you're like, you see it all. They don't see it. You're like, come on, what's up?
Yeah. So with knowing what your human design is, how can you take it to the next level by knowing it?
Okay. So every type has a way that they manifest, make things happen. Every different person has a way that their intuition functions, right? So everybody says they listen to your intuition. What human design says is like some people it's in their gut, some people it's in their instincts, heart, mind, ego, emotions. Yours, because you're a reflector, is what we call revelation intuition, meaning if something kind of comes to you over and over again, it's almost like ahas. It's actually not in your physical body. It's much more cosmic, for want of a better word. It's much more energetic and felt. So different people's intuition works differently. And what they say is if you just know how you manifest, i.e. waiting until you're invited, waiting, until you're recognized or whatever, and use your intuition, you would actually end up living the rest of your design without even if you didn't know it, right? Because your intuition and using your energy correctly would lead you to all the other things. But there's so many practical applications in there. For example, like your digestion could be that you are what's called high sound, which means that you eating in like, high buzzy environments, maybe your low sound is your digestion. It could be if you hate sounds, for example, and that would actually help your digestion. Someone was telling me this morning that she is supposed to live in dim lighting, and she's literally all her gut issues went away when she started. She changed all the lights in her house. So there's small things like that. Some people are better off eating hot food than cold food. Some people are better off being consistent. Some people are better off being inconsistent. Some people have to be strategic. Some people non-strategic. So all those things, there's not really much you have to, I always say awareness is like 90% of the work, because once you're aware of it, then actually just doing a different action doesn't take that much effort. But I think the resistance to becoming aware of something new is where most people, struggle, kind of thing. So sometimes a permission slip like this that's outside of yourself that says, regardless of how you think you are, this is how you are. And to be interested in experimenting with it, just little bits here, like maybe sleeping more according to your type. So like both of you would need more sleep than the average people would, because you're both what we call non-energy types, which means that you run off of other people's energy. So when you're around other people, it gives you energy, but then it's like plugging in. So when you plug out, you really need a full recharge. So it's just things like that when you try something like that, that's like an easier thing to try, and you go, okay, well, that actually does work. Then it becomes easier to maybe hustle less, which is difficult for a lot of people, or remove yourself from environments, which is difficult for people. And, I always tell people, start with the places that are easy, build up the evidence, and then kind of go from there.
So you can do this test and it'll feed you these types of things for your personality. And what you're saying is you can kind of implement and test some of these things to see if it actually improves or enhances your life. So anyone that's even skeptical, it's like, okay, there's nothing to lose by at least getting this information and trying and seeing if it works.
Literally.
How can we as parents support our children's human design. So let's say we haven't done it yet. We're going to do it tonight when Michael gets the birth certificate, right, Michael? Of Zaza, we're going to get her human design. Once we know that, how can we make sure that we're supporting her human design like as a child?
So actually my favorite thing to do is kids, because think about how much unbecoming all of us have to do. And the founder of Human Design used to say that who this is really for is the children, because think about how much they're going to be able to fly if they're not having to do all this unbecoming first. If they're living in alignment, like from the very beginning, I mean, can you imagine like the ease and the heights that they can reach and everything? So the thing about kids is that, often most kids are going to show you who they are like from very early on, but people are blind to it because they're like, oh no, they have to do school this kind of way, or they have to whatever, or they have these ideas. But for example, like just one thing that, learning your kids design will tell you is like some kids want to learn all the information about everything. Other kids need to experiment and try everything out and quote unquote fail at it. And that's how they learn, is like through the school of life. There's other kids that seem to just be naturally good at it without even knowing how they're naturally good at things. Manifested kids, for example, a lot of the time will ask their parents. I mean, there's not one manifested kid I haven't met who hasn't asked their parents to do like, take me out of school or school me at home, or I want to go to this specific school. And they always ask their parents for their specific schooling, and the parents don't often know how to listen, or they say, well, you don't know what's good for you. I know, but I'm going to teach you. I'm going to make you, fall in line more. And manifested kids are very independent from early on. They try to rule the roost from early on. And if you don't know what that is, you're going to think that you letting them do what they want is being a bad parent, right? But if you see that that's them already living in alignment, then it brings a whole different spin to it.
If you, after learning all about this and knowing so much about it, if you could like blanketly just give advice to everyone on this, what would it be? Would it be to learn this at an early age? Would it be to lean into whatever your child is? What would your advice be?
My advice would be actually to reframe what we think of as gifts, because I think the biggest problem that we all have is we think that gifts is only like athletic prowess or tech genius or creative, whatever. And actually, no one is bringing their kids up to say the amount that you care for other people, the amount that you nurture, how good of a logical brain you have is going to make you a billionaire or whatever, or make you successful or blah, blah, blah. So I think reaffirming the unglamorous sounding gifts that come easy to kids is the best thing, because we kind of think that everyone functions the same way as us. And that's why we don't see our gifts, because we think everyone else, it comes to them easily as well as it comes to us. And we also think that the things that we find hard are things that other people find hard, right? So if everyone could see that the things that, freaking Jeff Bezos was just an online librarian. That doesn't sound that glamorous to begin with, So the first step is never going to be this like, oh my God, wow, like, or very rarely anyway, right? So the main thing for parents, but also for people learning to see themselves or like learning to get in their sort of what I call like a magic lane is like, well, what if my passion for bottles makes me the biggest bottler and innovator of bottles in the world? Like, we just don't know where it can lead. But if you're in your lane, it's much more likely to lead you there with more ease, because you make quantum leaps when you're aligned. The universe is not always trying to redirect you.
I think that's really good advice, because I watched my husband in 7th and 8th and 9th grade like hate school, and you were chastised by your parents and your teachers. Like he had so many Saturday schools and so many detentions, and it was such a negative thing. And now I look at him and I'm like, oh my God, all your gifts are almost based off of that.
Well, no, but in parallel to all this and what we talk about on this show all the time, and I know it sounds cheesy, but it's like this whole being your authentic self and living that way is like, I think it's such a mistake when you put people in a box of any kind, right? And I think it's one of the reasons I've rallied so hard against the traditional school and even college system. It's like, it is not set up. I would say it's more set up for generators, right? Because it's like, you do this, you follow a certain path. But if you're not that type of thinker, which I definitely wasn't, right? You kind of get written off. They kind of say like, okay, this person doesn't know how to function. They're not going to be successful. They don't get the diploma. They don't get the grades. But it's just because that system doesn't necessarily fit with the way those people think or the way they find inspiration or creativity or productivity. So I didn't hate school per se. I hated the way that I was put to conform into a box that everybody else was put into. And I'm sure there's a lot of other people. I wasn't the only one, right? And I think that should be talked about more because we've got this archaic system that just kind of puts people in this system for 15, 20 years. And then they all come out and they're like, wait a minute, this didn't work for me. Like if I would have gone through that traditional system and then, like I said earlier before, like applied for the job, like my life would be in shambles right now.
Yeah.
Also, it's weird because even though you hated school and school didn't like you back, he's the biggest reader I know. So it's just, it's interesting what you're saying to me. I think it sounds very, very true. Do you think that everyone should know their human design?
No.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Just because I feel like everybody's at different paces and different places, and everyone is here for such a different incarnation. You know, we have no idea. It's funny, the other day I was walking in Venice and I saw a man who was literally curled up on the street, and there was a box of cookies like smashed all over the floor, and he had shoes kicked off. And my initial, like when I looked at him, it was kind of neutral. And then my mind kicked in and goes, well, you should feel sorry for him. And then my other voice kicked in and said, maybe he's just really tapped in and knows stuff we don't even know. Maybe he's wiser than everybody. Maybe he's too sensitive to handle like the difficulties of this world. Like we try to make these narratives over what everyone is on. But some people just aren't here they're not even here for a self-knowing quest, which can feel sometimes a bit mind-blowing to people who are spiritual seekers, that not everyone is here to do the same thing as us, you know? But I just think that if you're not drawn to it for whatever reason, I would like to not think that just because it's so important to my life that means it should be important to everybody else's.
I think it's like a conversation too of what people put value on and what also how people determine success. Like some people's idea for success is you go through a corporate structure, you build a business and you sell it and you make a bunch of money and that's your indicator for success. Some people would absolutely hate that life, right? Like, and I always try to tell people this, like there's nothing wrong with not deciding that your version of success is somebody else's. Or like your version might be like, I need enough just to get by so I can go live off in nature and live off the land and hang out and not have to think about anything that has to do with this corporate structure that we've built, right?
Yeah.
But that's just like that could be just as successful and just as much happiness for somebody as it is for somebody that finds success in the other realm. Does that make sense?
I like energy to me is one of the main things. So that's why I think that this is so important to talk about, but you are right. Maybe just because it's important to me, it's not important to everyone. I would love to know just what other things that you do in your day to day that are spiritual, that are in line with this. Like, is there something that you drink, something you study, something you read that supports everything that we're talking about?
So, I mean, I've done so many different tools. And I think something that has really sort of like resonated with me in the last 2 years is that if there's no heart there, if your heart is not engaged in it, it's actually not going to give you anything. You can go through the motions, and unless you feel actually different from it, you know. So for me now, I try to really just like sit with my heart every day and say like, do you need me to reassure you today? What are you afraid of today? What's bugging you? I try to just write down a list of my irritations sometimes. I do that a lot.
A long list.
You know, just like very basic. And the thing that I think is like real, like down to it is I try to get like okay with my humanness. So meaning, obviously, if I have bad intentions, that's not okay. But if I feel jealous or if I feel angry or if I feel whatever, some kind of negative thing, it has to be okay for me to admit that to myself. Let there be nothing I can't say to me about me is my thing that I pray to myself. Because if I can't deal with that as being an organic reaction, then I can't, wherever other place I'm working with myself from is just a narrative and like some nice sounding spiritual thing like, oh, I just like feel people too much and like poor me because I'm living in this world and like, oh no, and the aliens, you know what I mean? I'm like, okay, it could be true, but it's also not going to help me. So I need to be okay with the fact that like I manipulated the situation. Maybe I am an empath, but I also use that to my advantage. And maybe even 5% of you was like a little sneaky today. So like, how can we, because that's the part I can change, right? So that's my sort of like main spiritual practice, because I like to make it like, okay, grounded and sort of doable rather than get caught up in the nice sounding narratives that make me sound more evolved than other people, or whatever it is that, the spiritual ego will sometimes try to make us tell ourselves.
I can see why you're both projectors, because Michael always says if he does something wrong, he goes, no one's harder on me than me.
Wow.
That's kind of
well,
very similar to what
I
you
think
just
that's
said.
also what I have to remember. If I'm just being honest, I have to remember that I can be very hard on myself and still recover, if that makes sense. Meaning, like, I can say things to myself, like, for example, let's just say it's in the business. I can be like, okay, I can find all the holes in the way that I operated or the way I did something and be very hard and make a drastic change instantly. And I think that sometimes I think people can take that same delivery from me. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I can take it from myself.
From yourself, yeah. It's interesting though, because I think that when the line is shame, right? So if you say, oh, if I can say to myself, I felt jealous, and just realize that everyone feels jealousy in different degrees and that we're all the same, then it also makes me more accepting of other people's too. Because I'm like, oh, how beautiful. We're just all human. We're just getting it wrong. Like it's levity again, right? It's like doesn't make me a bad person.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I sound like a little bit of a psychopath here, but sometimes I'm talking to myself. But I think that I talk to Lauren about this all the time. We all believe that our experience is the true experience, meaning all of our perspective, right? And we think that like the world is how we see it. And we have to remember is the world is how the other person sees it as well.
Yeah.
And so we would all do ourselves a better service ourselves better if we recognize that it's not just our experience, but somebody else is they're living in the same moment, but could be having a completely different experience.
Yeah.
Or a completely different feeling or a completely different reaction.
Yeah. And that's where actually looking at other people's design becomes really fun. Because like, for example, when I first did my mom's design, it literally changed the way I understood her completely. And I had so much acceptance for her because I was like, oh, she likes to get in fights because she has like warrior energy in her chart. And so for her, she just has to learn which fights to pick. And right now she doesn't always know, but there's a divine purpose behind that. You know what I mean? There's sometimes she'll like yell at her mom to cover up her baby because it's in the sun. I'm like, maybe that mom, you know what I mean? Or like sometimes it's like, shut up. But sometimes it's like, okay, you're like doing I don't know, they're just fumbling. We're all getting it wrong. So me understanding that just because I'm not supposed to have that quality to work with or to refine doesn't mean that it's unaligned for her. So seeing the other is really so healing because it helps you accept others in actually seeing them for who they are, not just like accept each other, but like actually like, let me see you.
That makes total sense. So knowing what other people in your life are. Maybe I have a few people I can send your human design app to take.
This may be ignorant, but so you get the base level of what you are. And then I'm reading here a note about a chart. Does the chart
I just wanted to ask you, like, so you read people's charts?
So I used to read people's charts and my wait list grew to 1.5 years. So I was like, okay, God. People need this information quicker than we can get this out. So what I did was create an app where literally it will just piece all the different parts together. So it spits out all the information that is your full chart. And then you can also have it read to you by me. So it's like having a full reading, but in your pocket. And then you can also look up all the other people in your life and get readings for them. And then you get a customized daily tip to like help break it down, like, okay, how to sleep better for yourself or whatever, something small. And then you also get like energy updates because every day the energy changes. So like today there's the energy of this available to all of us and this is how we can kind of like use it, and it just helps to make it practical,
So you can go on the app and instead of just getting what you can get on Google, you can get like a whole entire reading and then you get like tips every day. I'm 100% doing that.
And to clarify, you and I could both be projectors but have completely different charts?
Completely. So Taylor, who works for me, who's in the room, she's a projector too, but she's what we call a quad left. She's a 3-5, I'm a 2-4. We have completely different incarnation crosses. So your incarnation cross, there's 192 of them, and it's the purpose of your life. So some people are here to make beautiful spaces. Some people are here to explain complicated things to people. Some people are here to whatever. There's 192 of them, and they're very specific. They pertain to your life purpose. So we have completely different life purposes, for example. What we have in common is we use our energy in the same way, as do you. So there's many different layers to it. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
That is wild.
Yeah.
This is so smart that you did this app. I think a lot of people should go check it out. Where can everyone find the app and where can they get their chart read?
So the app is My Human Design on Google and Apple. We also have a website, myhumandesign.com, if you want to trained to be a human design reader. I have a teacher training too. You can get a reading from one of my certified readers, or you can just get some more basic videos and dive into other things. Like we have videos on there about like what's coming in 2027, the new paradigm changing. There's so many different layers to all this science basically.
Before you go, I have one more question.
Yes.
And you might be like, I don't know what you're talking about, but what did the eclipse do to the energy recently?
Okay, so eclipses are when the sun and the moon, it's always on a full moon and a new moon, right? So you always have two together because one usually precedes the other. And think about the word eclipse, it just like turns everything on its head. So between these two eclipses, it's like you're getting this opportunity to like see more stuff, do more things, stuff that you thought was kind of always there to stay, like part of the furniture is like, oh, maybe it isn't part of the furniture. Maybe I can kind of like move it. Maybe it isn't as permanent as I thought it was, that type of thing. So there's like an overhaul of energy that we all can do.
Because Michael was acting like he was on his period during the eclipse. And
I bet that it does that too, huh?
Oh my God. I was like, what is going on? And then
that's very sexist, Lauren. I don't like you saying that.
My fitness trainer was like, oh yeah, there's like an irritability in the air. And I was like,
that's interesting.
Oh my God. I was reflecting it back to you. And I was like, what is going on?
Think about it. It's like this giant projection onto us.
I was going to say, do you feel that though? When he's irritated, do you feel like super, like, can you sense that?
Oh, I'm so sensitive to it. It's almost annoying though, how sensitive, like it almost bothers me how sensitive I am to it.
Yeah,
because
I can imagine.
Because I'm so sensitive to when someone is upset or irritable that it's like I don't know. It's just
I keep her around like a vampire whenever I'm not. I got to go and suck the energy.
I know. Sometimes you have to protect your space though, and meditations helped me a lot with that. To be like, no, don't speak to me until I meditate.
I have one more question, and it could be quick. If you find out what you are, and you find out what you're like, are there certain types that aren't matched together? Are we a match?
How long you got? So the way I do couple like compatibility things is there's always places where you're the same, and those are places where there's friendship basically. And then the places where you're opposite are where there's potential for chemistry, because actually what you have different is what you find like the polarity in and what's attractive and whatever. And for some people, they want we're very similar, but we don't really like sleep together very often. And that's that, you know what I mean? And that's actually aligned for some people. And then you have other ones with the other like end of the spectrum where there's like constant fights, no seeing eye to eye, but then there's just like crazy makeup sex or whatever. So most people are like some kind of combination in the middle, but I think it's about figuring out how much of which you want, and then finding someone who gives you like just enough similarity for you to feel safe and just enough polarity for you to feel excited. And some people don't need the polarity at all. I don't know.
Want both ends of the spectrum. I'm a Gemini.
You're
want
a reflector too.
I want the makeup sex, but I also want chill consistency vibes.
There's
I want it all.
But that's reflectors. Over the course of the moon cycle, you will feel like different people.
Yeah, I never know what I'm getting over here. I never know.
That's the key. That's the key to it being a reflector. I think Marilyn Monroe was a reflector too. So that's what I said. You can experience the full spectrum of humanity.
Has it always been 1%'s reflector, always, or no?
It's always been extremely like pretty much 1 in 100, and they're the oldest type. So you're the oldest. He's the youngest. That's kind of funny. Yeah.
Little cougar over there.
Oh.
You know what that means though? It means your soul has always been a reflector. If you believe in reincarnation,
I do.
It means you've always been a reflector, because your soul can't be anything else. Otherwise, it would be also coming through. So you'll have like a base level design that is always present throughout all your lives. So that would mean you will always blank, which is kind of amazing. You'd have different gifts, different traits. That sort of thing would express differently. Like you might be better at something one lifetime or another, but you'd always be a reflector.
I can't wait to see what Zaza is.
Bunch of the people stuck in 3D are going to be pissed about this episode.
Yeah. Some people are stuck in 3D.
What I want to know is what's in 4D and why are we skipping over it?
I don't know, but
I think it has to do with dimensions.
Maybe who's in 5D and who's not.
That's what we were joking about this after.
No, Taylor might be in 3D. Not Taylor. This Taylor. Yeah, Taylor might still be in 3D. I don't know what to say, but I'm in 5D. I had to pull him into 5D.
But here's the thing. So when you do, like, for example, have you ever done like mushrooms or anything? So when you do mushrooms, if you feel everything in such a crazy way, do you not feel it on? Is it bearable?
It's so funny that you say that because I made a mistake once and did mushrooms at a concert and I was fucking losing it. I was like, I was
having a great time.
He was having a great time and everyone was having a great time. And I was like, people would come up to me and if I could feel like, I just wanted, I'm a person, if I do mushrooms, it's got to be with people who I like, am completely aligned with, who I'm completely comfortable with in a setting of nature. And I want to take my phone and crack it and throw it. I don't want it near me for 8 hours. Like it has to be a very curated atmosphere with the certain energy. That's really funny that you say that.
Yeah, because if you're already feeling everything is like overstimulated and it makes everything feel like Technicolor, then I can't imagine how it must feel.
The trip is great if it's right.
Mm-hmm.
It's I would rather I would rather give birth 5 times and give blood than do mushrooms again at a concert.
Yeah.
That's how bad it was for me.
I can imagine.
But people all the time are like, "Oh, I do mushrooms at a concert," and I'm just like, "Works for them."
I know.
So I don't know.
But they must be like, I don't know, some kind of
sign.
Let's not assume.
There's like last weekend I did mushrooms at a concert. No, I'm just kidding.
I kind of miss mushrooms. I'll take them.
Yeah.
Big handful.
I miss mushrooms too. I miss margaritas. I miss ice baths. I miss saunas. I miss charcoal. What else do I miss? I miss it all.
Charcoal.
Oh, you can't take mushrooms when you're pregnant. No.
I don't know. Does anyone want to study it?
Let's not go. I mean, we're gonna get all sorts of comments.
I could point you to someone on that. Yeah, let's see.
Where is your Instagram?
So it's at My Human Design.
Okay.
And I'm specifically at Jenna Zoe.
Love it.
Yeah.
And then I also have to shout out Taylor. You're so adorable. You guys, what's her Instagram so everyone can follow?
Tay Gruey.
Okay.
And she's also responsible for anything that's hilarious on our My Human Design Instagram, like Harry Potter as types and basically anything funny because I'm not that funny. It's all Taylor as well.
And she's also into human design as well.
So how I found her was she did the Kardashian, like she did a reel of Kardashians, you know that quote, I'm just living life. She did all the energy types, how they are living life. And I found her and I was like, wow, I need this. And that's how we found each other. So she took my training, we never met. And then I saw her on Instagram and I was like, that's what I need.
Yeah, I love how you guys work together. And we ran into each other at the hotel.
I know.
And it was like, we needed you on the podcast.
Can I tell you, the first time I saw you though was such a funny story. 4 years ago, I moved to Monaco. And my friend Jordan told me, "Oh, you have to follow this girl who lives there."
You live there currently?
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
She said to me, "Oh, you have to follow this woman called Ingrid. That's the only person I know, someone that lives in Monaco." So I started following her. Found you through her, and then I was on Antibes 2 years ago, basically breaking up with my fiance, and I saw you guys, and I knew who you were, and I was like, "That is soulmate energy." We literally, as we were breaking up, and I was like, "Oh, there's like a togetherness to your aura." And it was like a sign.
You should have sat down at our table. We would have talked you off the ledge about the fiance.
Were we alone or with the baby?
No, I don't think you had her yet.
Okay, because if you would have saw us in that aura with the baby,
that's a different energy.
That was a different energy.
The baby was hanging off the diving board there. Like I was just like trying to drink as many margaritas.
It was 2020, summer of 2020. That's when it was all happening. I think you were there without a baby.
How fun! That sounds fun.
We were in the same hotel. We were in Hotel de Cap.
So I was gonna say
you should have said hi. You should have come and sat down.
I was just like,
next time we'll do it again. But listen, no.
We're friends now, but
when
maybe mushrooms.
When we brought a baby there, we've done it. We've done a few. Obviously, there's been baby and no baby, and I had the idea that it was gonna just be the same with the baby. Like no problem. Oh my god, it's a whole different deal.
That's so funny.
You guys go get your human design checked. Let us know on my latest Instagram what you are. We would love to know. Jenna, thank you for coming on. Taylor, thank you for coordinating. And come back anytime, maybe in Monaco.
Done.
I have another excuse to go. I'm just going to write off.
Come visit.
Michael wants his chart read in Monaco.